This little device seemed like it had everything I wanted, or at least that's what I thought. It's a Creative Labs MP3 player from 2011, the Zen X-Fi 3. At first glance, it felt like the perfect tiny MP3 player. It's compact, it's black, and it's got 8 GB of storage built in, plus a micro SD card slot for expansion. The X-Fi 3 is chunky, even by standards at the time, but I like the solid little presence in the hand. I've owned this for a few months now. I started my journey in a fairly regular way by replacing the battery, with the first difficulty being there are no screws. So I did what I had to do, and I started with a blade, carefully seeing if I can lift that back cover off, and not even a single disassembly photo or video online. And sure enough, it's clipped together, and I was able to pry it apart. There's the main board, and it's nice and tight. Looks like a neat design. At this point, the casing is starting to feel a bit cheap and plastic. This doesn't have the premium build of an iPod, but it's not so bad. It's decent enough for what it is. I swapped in a new battery, one with some charge already in it. I can immediately give it a test and power it up, and there we go, everything came alive. This Zen is absolutely packed with features, and a lot more than I was expecting. At the time, the largest micro SD card available would probably have been about 16 gigabytes. But I wanted to push the limits a bit, and I tested this with a 256 gigabyte card. And it didn't work at first, but I worked out that if I formatted the card to FAT32, it indeed worked perfectly. That means in theory, this Zen could probably support micro SD cards all the way up to 2 terabytes. Of course, it's got a headphone socket, but this model also includes Bluetooth, so I can use wireless headphones. As for music playback, it sounded really good. This is a neat little player, and I started wondering why I didn't want to use it. So I started looking back at some of my favourite players from the past. In fact, I went all the way back to my favourite cassette Walkman of all time, the Sony WM-R707. I was lucky enough to find this example years ago, back when I was first starting this channel. This has even appeared in a couple of earlier videos, a very old one replacing the belt, of course, and a slightly later one where I finally fixed that pinch roller. Now, being tape-based, the audio does have its flaws, like wow and flutter, but I still adore this. This is a beautiful machine. It's even slightly reminiscent of the monolith, an idea that I talked about in a previous video. I had hoped the Zen X-Fi 3 would evoke similar feelings, but it didn't. It almost had the opposite. Instead of feeling cool, it felt something closer to fear. Then I started thinking about the end of the 1990s, when the black aesthetic began to fade, and it was being replaced by the new silver aesthetic. I remember that era clearly. Going into and well throughout the 2000s, black was rare. Nearly everything was coming exclusively in silver, and I admit at the time I generally didn't like this trend. I wanted my devices to feel mysterious and cool again. Instead, the devices that were coming out felt more plasticky and toy-like. These CD Walkmans from that period are perfect examples. Sharp corners were gone and being replaced by rounded edges. I mean, it's fair enough that portable CD players went from black boxes to rounded silver UFOs, but I really miss the darker aesthetic. While thinking about this shift, I pulled out another music player that I've had since I started this channel. This is the Sony NW-S705F from 2007. The one I have here has a slightly more golden sheen to it than the silver, but it's very representative of the time. I do really like the metal frame. This player feels very heavy and fits really well in the hand. Though by later standards, it's very limited. It's only got 2 GB of storage, no expansion, and you have to use the awkward Sonic Stage software to upload music. But while looking at this beautiful player, I think I've gained a new understanding of the silver aesthetic. It wasn't just a stylistic shift. It was a bright and futuristic vision of where technology was going. By comparison, this Zen feels kind of uninspired. When I showed it to a friend, she said, "It looks like a kitchen timer." And we agreed that the touch buttons with no tactile feedback don't help either. And I've started to wonder if any of this is related to why this is Creative's last ever MP3 model. But even still, these facts alone don't explain the unease I was feeling. And the only thing I can equate this to is where handheld technology has gone since then. I've talked about this before in a previous video about why we love retro tech. But there is still something good about this Zen that I can end this video with. And that is, this model is compatible with Rockbox. This is a wonderful alternative firmware that's also open source and breathes new life into old MP3 players. I first experienced Rockbox just a few years ago on one of the very first iPods, and I absolutely loved it. That was a black and white model, but I was still very impressed. So I've been waiting for the chance to try Rockbox on a colour screen device. Rockbox is still being updated today, with the latest version having come out only this year. Simply copy the custom bootloader to the root of the file system, make sure it's named firmware.sb, and reboot. The bootloader then installs itself automatically, and restarting again gave me a new boot screen, but with an error because there's no firmware loaded yet. Rockbox uses a dual boot system. Copy the Rockbox firmware files across and tried booting again. And there we go, Rockbox is alive. The last time I made a video about this firmware, I was accused of making a video that felt like an advertisement for Rockbox. But I have to admit, Rockbox never fails to impress me. Its flexibility is remarkable. You can build your own themes from the ground up, or choose from dozens of others made by fans that are already available. And beyond all its music capabilities, there's also development going on with games and apps. I tried out some of the new games that are available, like Amaze. Blockmania is also really good, but it is showing the limitations of touch controls on this model. There's also a Tetris clone called Rockblocks. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this has Doom. It's always good seeing Doom running on something like this. Installing Rockbox on here has helped me soothe that sense of uneasiness. I feel like I have much more control over my destiny. It almost feels a bit like Prometheus when he stole fire from the gods. It may not be the best MP3 player, but I do like it now. What I really want is an MP3 player with tactile buttons and an OLED screen instead of LCD. And of course, it has to have full Rockbox support. I'm thinking something like the SanDisk Sansa Clip Zip might have the qualities I'm looking for, while this Zen model can remain on my shelf as an interesting general device and decent enough MP3 player. But what about my beautiful Sony Walkman that has helped give me a new respect for the silver aesthetic of the 2000s? I think I'll dedicate it to holding a small set of very special albums. That way I don't have to go to the trouble of uploading new music into it. At the height of the silver aesthetic, the Sony MZ RH1 portable mini disc came out in 2006. I loved exploring this model in a recent video. After that video, a generous viewer who wishes to remain anonymous sent me a gift. A black RH1. I'm blown away because these are so hard to find. Sony made so few of them in black. This unit is damaged inside, but I will be attempting to fix this. I never thought I would actually own this model in black. It's so beautiful. Thank you for this gift. And thank you to everyone who supports this channel, whether it's through gifts, memberships, or Patreon support, or simply watching, liking, and enjoying these videos. I often struggle to make videos, so every little thing you do helps to keep me going more than you know. There is a shorter companion video released together with this one, featuring that beautiful Sony Walkman. For now though, that's it, and I'll see you next time.